Hey there, Nicki of Life by Design. Welcome to this tutorial video where I'm going to show you how to paint white flowers. So in order for you to be able to see what I'm painting, I've actually changed the hue a little bit on some of the paint colors that I'll show you. I'm using ones that have a little bit of pink in them, and of course a little bit of gray. That would be a go-to color that you would use to paint a white flower. So painting white flowers is a little bit more challenging. I have tried to keep the beginner in mind in how my brush strokes are very simple and how to mix the color very simply. This is something that I believe that you should practice and try to build on, but I feel like this tutorial is really great to give you that varieties for when you're approaching painting white flowers. Okay, so let's dive in. Look at these guys here. So let's use these as an example. So when I look at these flowers, I can see white, I can see green because it's reflected from the stem, and I can see grays. Some flowers will have different color undertones in them. Some will have maybe pink undertones, ivory. What I'm going to do is show you how you can water down colors. So I've got a mixing palette here. I've got some color residue, but for this practice, you don't want a lot of pigment. You want more water than anything. So in this little quadrant here, I can see I have some pink left over. I'm gonna pull up a tiny bit of my Opera Rose so you can see how bold that is. And I am going to tone it down by using lots of water. So I still want you to be able to see the finished painting, which is really hard when you're filming white, but I want you to think about maybe we're gonna paint sort of impressionistic. So maybe it's like a peony style. Go ahead and tone that down a bit. Maybe we'll pick up some of this titanium mix that I have. Make sure I've got my handy swatch card. So I feel like that's good enough for you to see on camera. So when you're painting, make sure you have clean water. Mine isn't perfectly clean, but again, I want you to be able to see. And what you can do is just start painting petals. So we can do like a 5-point flower for this one. I know I mentioned peony, but let's start with just a simple 5-point flower. So that's 2, and I'm just in like C shapes, painting out the different petals, and just very wet, making sure I leave a little bit of negative space. I'm going to take my paper towel, clean off my brush, and I can even go back and remove for highlights. So again, in a white flower, you're seeing the white tone, but you're also seeing maybe gray undertones, green undertones. This one is a bit of a pink flower. And what I'm doing is I'm allowing the petals, so the watercolor petals, to create almost an outline. So it'll dry with a little bit of structure to it. So you can see where the flower starts and stops, okay? And then to define it even more, you can go ahead and paint in some stamen, let that even bleed through to create some dimension there. Okay, maybe we'll even grab a little bit of this green and just very lightly draw in my stem and bring up a little leaf here too. Okay, so it's not exactly white because again, I want you to be able to see, but I want you to think about watering down color. So I'm gonna grab some of my Payne's Gray. So this is just a little bit of Payne's Gray, and I'm going to mix a lot of water. Okay, so we're gonna start at the top, and again, just moving the petal around. So thinking of a ball or a bud shape in various sizes. So in a C curve, just moving those around. Maybe this flower is a bit more open. Close up those petals. So I'll leave a center this time that's more open. So a lot of water. I can even go back and pick up some of that pigment. Okay, nice and open flower here. Adding a bit more water to my brush. And just picking up pigment. And in a C, again, just a little bit of a C curve. And remember to push your color to the edges, because that's what will create definition as we're painting these buds. And again, I'm imagining them being maybe like lily of the valley type flower. Go ahead and have one that's open here. Not that these are lily of the valley, but you know what I mean? Just like little flowers that are on a stem together. Go ahead and paint more open. Maybe have them peek behind. Take a dry brush, so I just wiped my brush off, and I'm pulling out some of that color so you can see that it is pulling out highlight, so it's making it appear like it's more of a white flower versus this gray. So you can just pull out a little bit of that pigment here, wiping it off. Okay, that looks good for now. Make sure I have a wet brush. It's floral, so maybe the stem comes out this way. So having the stems come together, maybe it's all coming together in a larger stem that's doing something like this. Okay, maybe they're even connected, so I can even deepen by adding a little bit of green at the tops of the flower, like in here a slight bit. Maybe I want to even paint out some leaves, just again for a bit of contrast. And as you start to build that contrast, you'll see that the flower does mimic that white floral. There we go. Okay, so again, when you think about painting a white flower, I want it to be a little bit darker so that you can see the contrast. I would even add more water so that you can tone down what the flower looks like. I've got a bit of room here. Let's maybe do what a daisy would look like. So go ahead and just long strokes of color, but leaving space. I hope you can see that. So just leaving space. And sometimes with the daisy and painting flowers, it's what you paint around it that will help mimic that flower. And remember, watercolor, it'll dry a slight bit darker. So as this water starts to set, it'll start to dry. Okay, and let's intensify that center a bit. So again, this is just a really watered down version of that same gray. A bit too much water on my brush. Go ahead and soak that back up. Maybe even find, I've got a little bit of yellow ochre here. Okay, so as it starts to dry, you can see that it is a white floral. So if you're doing a whole bouquet of these white florals, really it's the accent colors that will start to draw or bring your eye to the white of the floral. So as you can see with painting white flowers, they can be a little bit challenging, especially as you're recording a video to show. But what I want you to do is remember to water down your paint. So you can paint white flowers that have a bit of a pinky hue, a bit of a yellowy hue. And if you want to paint white flowers that are more traditionally white, then go ahead and try to mix that very, very light wash of gray, because often with shadows, when you're looking at flowers, the shadows are gray within those flowers, unless there's another color reflecting onto them. Okay, so remember, this can be a little bit more intermediate, but it is a really great way to start practicing painting white flowers if you're incorporating them in a larger floral bouquet. So I hope you like this video. Remember that every Sunday I publish new content to my YouTube channel, so go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on all those new great tutorials. And if you like this video, remember to go ahead and click like, comment below and let me know what you think. If there's anything you'd like me to record next, or maybe if you have questions, I'd love to hear from you. So until next week, I hope you have a great painting session and happy painting.